Hey, I'm Jennifer Hurvitz, best-selling author of the books One Happy Divorce and Woulda, Coulda, Shoulda. I'm a relationship coach, a public speaker, and I'm the mom of two of the most kick-ass teenage boys around. Raw, authentic, and insightful, this podcast is a no-bullshit slice of reality for anyone curious about what it looks like to get divorced. On Doing Divorce Right, we'll give you the tools you'll need to navigate your relationships, whether you're contemplating divorce or have already signed the papers. We'll figure it out together without taking ourselves too seriously here on Doing Divorce Right podcast. Hey, good morning. This is Doing Divorce Right or Avoiding It Altogether. I'm your host, Jennifer Hurvitz. I'm here every single Tuesday or Wednesday or Thursday, whenever you decide to listen to my show. Hi, everybody. Welcome. Hope everybody's hanging in there, doing the COVID quarantine thing, staying where you're supposed to stay, doing what you're supposed to do, following directions. Take a deep breath. I'm so happy to be here, you guys. This is going to be my second episode in quarantine. Sounds really crazy, but I'm usually in my house anyway, so it's all right. I have an amazing guest for you today. I always say that. I always say I have the best guest, but this one is awesome. And I've stalked her a little bit, and I got to tell you, when you hear about Jess O'Reilly, if you don't know about this woman, she's a rock star. She's a sexologist, a relationship expert. She's a background in education. She's amazing. Her podcast is, if I'm correct, is called Sex with Dr. Jess. Does it get any better than that? And if you Google this woman, she's gorgeous on top of it all. So I love it. Let's see. Her research and passion involves teacher training in sexual health, and she volunteers in schools and universities to help bring better sex and relationship education to students across Ontario. And she's from Toronto. I love that place. Jess is also a television personality, an author, podcast host, which I said, Sex with Dr. Jess podcast, and international speaker, who has facilitated hundreds of corporate workshops and retreats in 35 countries, from Lebanon to Costa Rica. Wait, did you have a TED Talk to you, Jess?
I sure did. It's called Monogamish.
Monogamish. I watched it. That's awesome. I actually watched you because I have a TED Talk coming up. They had to change it. And I watched you to get some tips. You're amazing. Hi, Jess. How are you?
Good. How are you? But what is your TED Talk coming up? Tell me about it.
My TED Talk. Well, no, forget about me. Let's talk about you. We'll talk about me later. Who cares? I am so excited to have you. Wait a minute. You've been on Women's Health. You've been in Cosmo. You've been in Self Magazine. You've been on my favorite, of course, Oprah Magazine. You're a rock star, Jess. Thank you for being here.
Aw, thank you. Thank you. Happy to chat with you.
And you have a new book. It's out.
I do. Yes. April 14th, The Ultimate Guide to Seduction and Foreplay, written. Yeah, I wrote it along with my co-author, Marla Renee Stewart. And I'm so proud of this book. This is my fifth book, actually.
I know, I saw that.
Yeah. And this one it's really just a project that I'm super proud of, because we really dive in to the theory of erotic and intimate relationships. So it's called Seduction and Foreplay. But honestly, I really think that the theory we unpack and then the exercises and the prompts we assign can be really life-changing. So yeah, we talk about seduction and fantasies and the way your learning style affects your seduction style. So are you a visual, auditory, tactile? Yeah, it's really cool. That's a theory that comes from my co-author, Marla. And what she has hypothesized and learned from working with all of her clients is that the way you learn affects the way you desire sex. So if you tend to be a visual learner, you tend to be very drawn to visual cues when it comes to sex and seduction.
Doesn't that make sense?
Yeah, it's so cool. And so we look at all the different ways you can seduce a visual learner. So like eye contact matters. So we always, you always hear, eye contact is a way to flirt. But actually, if you're not a particularly visual person, like me, for example, I'm not a visual person at all. I don't notice when people get a haircut. I don't notice people's clothes. I have difficulty even telling faces apart. So eye contact doesn't mean a lot to me. But if you're a visual person, it's eye contact. It even has to do with whether or not there's clutter in the room. Those type of people like to hear stories in really rich detail. They're daydreamers. You want to cater to their dreams, not just in a sexual way, but in a relational way. They like to hear about colors and perspectives and anything that can be visually imagined. They're really concerned about the way you dress. They're attracted to people who are the opposite of the room. So someone who shows up a little late to make a grand entrance, or somebody who, if the room is busy, you stand still, they notice you. So if you're the opposite of the room, and so we talk about, different sex seeds you can plant. So foreplay, of course, doesn't begin in the bedroom. Foreplay is sex in and of itself, right?
Sure. I agree.
Really, the way you interact with your partner relationally affects the sexual interaction. So, you can plant these seeds over the course of the day or the week or the month to lay the groundwork for connecting sexually, right? Because we're not sexual light switches. We can't go from talking about our taxes and our kids to all of a sudden ripping off our clothes and being like, oh yeah, baby, so I'm a tiger. I tell my boyfriend
that all the time. I'm just not, I can't just get turned on in 2 seconds, right? I need some anticipation, some workup, some whatever. Don't you think that's true?
That is everything. Anticipation is not the precursor to pleasure. Anticipation is pleasure. And when you look at it from a chemical perspective, dopamine levels are higher during the anticipation phase than during the receipt of pleasure itself. So we spend a lot of time on that. So we talk about visual learners and then auditory learners. So I love sounds, and sounds are really essential to auditory learners. And it's not just about talking dirty or hearing you scream. It's really just about the sound of your voice being soothing and comforting and eventually turning you on. So auditory learners love feedback. They also love the sound of their own voice. So you want to let them talk. Case in point, me.
I think I am too. I'm the same way. Yeah. Which doesn't surprise me as podcasters. Yeah.
No, exactly. They're very attracted to vocabulary. So a range of styles and language and syntax. They are very responsive to low, soft, deep tones. So as you know, your parents used to teach you when you were a kid, it's not what you said, it's how you say it. Yes. So for auditory learners, they're into the music matters, the sounds you make matter. And then if you are more of a visual learner or a tactile learner, those are people who want to touch things. So if you take them shopping and they're looking around and admiring the colors, they're probably more visual. If they want to touch everything, they're probably more tactile. So with tactile learners, they like different points of pressure. They love to dance. Of course, there's crossover between all of these categories. Sure. It's not like they like to touch different fabrics. If you wear a cashmere sweater, they're going to want to put their hands all over you. They also want you to take them by the hand. So take them by the hand and show them how to touch you. They find your touch overwhelming, but they also really love to feel your body with their hands. So we really get into the theory. And then what we're trying to do in this book is leave people with specific action items. So we call them lovers' inquiries and seduction instructions. And there are hundreds of these prompts throughout the book for you to try, because it's one thing for us to share the research and the theory, but we want you to change your lives. We want you to change your behavior, not just change the way you think. And so we spend a lot of time on, for example, not just your seduction learning style, but your sexual and relational values, right?
Wow.
What do you value? What do you like about sex? What do you find challenging about sex? Why is sex important? What surprises you? What is your sexual style? What's the definition of a good sexual connection to you? Because the way you define it might be entirely different than the way you're. And so.
Yeah. Yes. And I think it's important too, because if you're so different from your partner, I think it's like the love languages, right? Like you need to figure out what your partner needs and wants, because you have to connect on that, right?
You hit the nail on the head. Yeah. But most of us haven't spent the time even considering our own sexual values. We've never journaled about it. We've never jotted it down. We've never pondered.
I love this.
Yeah. I'm so excited. Honestly, I'm so excited for this, just for the content. What puts you in the mood for sex? How do you want to feel before sex, during sex, after sex? What makes you feel most excited? What makes you feel nervous? What do you want to learn about sex? Because you don't know it all. What were your most memorable sexual experiences? The good, the bad, and the ugly. What did you fantasize about the last time you masturbated? How do you expect sex to change over the lifetime? So we have prompts upon prompts upon prompts and examples from real people, so that you can learn from other people's experiences and explore your own. And one of my favorite parts of the book is the exploration of your core erotic feeling. So I talk about this on my podcast all the time, but your core erotic feeling is the emotion you need to experience in order to possibly get in the mood for sex. So in order to have sex, I absolutely need to feel. What do you need to feel? Relaxed or loved or honored or happy or safe or powerful or playful or desired?
I have a question for you, because I feel like, first of all, this book is going to be, it's amazing because it gives people who don't like to talk about sex so much, or maybe they're embarrassed or it's a difficult conversation to have. It gives you a tool. I think it's awesome. First of all, I cannot wait. I'm so excited. And by the way, your book comes out today. because the podcast is going to air on the day your book. This is the 14th right now. This is airing next whatever. So everyone go get the book right now. Go get the book right now. I love it. Love it. Love it. But here's my question for you. Do you think this is a gender thing? Because I feel like while you're talking, I'm listening and I'm going, am I shaking my head? I'm shaking my head because I feel like I am like all over what you're saying. But if I was to say to my boyfriend, what is your blah, 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 he would look at me like I was nuts. Right? Like, is it, what do you think?
Yeah, well, that's interesting. So can I ask, is your boyfriend the type of person who's kind of always in the mood for sex? He doesn't really care how he feels?
No, I think like sometimes it's so funny. I'm trying to think, I think he really, he would ever, he would have it all the time, but I think sometimes he's tired or like he'd be fine not having it if I didn't want it. He never gets upset. You know what I'm saying? He's pretty chill.
Well, so there are people who are kind of always in the mood for sex. They're not pressuring you. They're not demanding it, but the emotional underpinning is probably so taken care of it doesn't matter. So let's say, for example, I need to feel really loved in order to have sex. That doesn't mean whenever I feel loved, I want sex. It means that if I don't feel loved, sex is just off the table. But the truth is, in my marriage, I feel so loved, man. Like, this man loves me so much. And no matter what's going on, he's just like, even if we're fighting, even if I'm being a pain in the ass, even if we're both in kind of bad moods like we are right now in isolation, this man loves me. Right. And so my core erotic feeling is kind of always taken care of. But I get that. But that doesn't always get me in the mood. And so
that's how I feel.
The reason we begin with the core erotic feeling, and I have some, questions for people to consider to better understand their core erotic feeling, is just like you said, it's like the love languages. So if I can explain to my partner, listen, in order to have sex, I need to feel really, really sexy. Then they can better understand the words to say to me, how to approach me, what not to say, what my triggers are, and approach me with greater confidence. Having said that, if my core erotic feeling is that I need to feel really sexy, it's actually not entirely my partner's job. It's mostly my job to make the changes in my life in order to feel sexy. So you hear from friends who have no interest in sex, but they want to have an interest in sex. They're like, I want sex, but I'm never in the mood. Well, it's probably because they're not attending to their core erotic feeling.
Oh, and wow. Okay. Yes.
If they were to change the things in their life, maybe it's their sleep habits, their exercise, their diet, the people they hang out with, the way they dress, the way they speak to themselves, their job, whatever the changes that they make, whatever changes need to be made to make themselves experience that feeling, the partner only enhances it. But let's say that's really taken care of. Like I said, let's say my core erotic feeling is that I need to feel loved. Well, that I always feel loved, but that doesn't mean I'm always in the mood for sex, because quite frankly, feeling loved is not a panty dropper to me. So I don't wear them anyway, but
yeah, I'm with you. I'm either. I'm like, I feel all the time, but you got to get me going. I got you. I'm with you. Okay.
Who is even wearing panties in isolation? Like, come on.
I haven't worn a bra in 3 weeks. I'm thrilled. This is awesome.
Oh, it's so nice, isn't it?
I love it.
I love it.
I'm so happy.
I know, right? The girls are free.
I love it. It's the best part about this whole thing. I'm like, no makeup, no bra. I love it. Let's go.
Well, it's funny because I have to do so much media right now, and I try and load it only on 1 or 2 days a week. Smart. I'm like, I will do 7 back to back because I'm like, I don't feel like doing my hair and makeup on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
I'm with you.
So once you figure out your core erotic feeling, then you really get into the fun. The core erotic feeling makes sex possible. Your elevated erotic feelings take sex to the next level. So everything is an emotional experience. It's the reason why, it feels so good when they recognize you at a restaurant and give you a good table. It's that really means nothing, but it feels good. It's the reason why it feels so bad when someone is rude to you when they're serving you your coffee, right? This person doesn't mean anything to you. You don't know them. It's probably not about you, but it still feels awful, the rejection, because we are emotional beings. So sex, of course, it doesn't matter if you're in a long-term loving relationship or if it's casual, it's still an emotional experience. So your elevated erotic feelings are the feelings that take sex to the next level, feelings that make it more intense in a really specific way. So it could be related to physical pleasure or psychological thrill or emotional fulfillment or intimate connection or spiritual experience, any benefit you derive from sex. So maybe your core erotic feeling is feeling loved, but your elevated erotic feeling is feeling like threatened or at risk. Like, how can you play with these feelings either in fantasy or in, bring them to reality so that you can derive pleasure from feelings that maybe aren't inherently pleasurable. So for example, I like to feel jealous. I don't want to feel jealous on Tuesday afternoon at lunch. I don't want to feel jealous, while I'm out at a bar with my partner, but I love the feeling of jealousy in bed because I've laid the foundation of the core erotic feeling. It is so taken care of that I can go to these submersive emotions and have fun with them. It's the reason why, like, when you think of kinky sex, like people liking, either pain or even humiliation or a little bit of degradation, oftentimes it's because they have so much love and safety in their relationship, which is amazing. You need that, but it's not fun all the time. It's not a thrill. So humans need a balance of safety and security and passion and risk. And the big mistake we're making in relationships, especially when it comes to sex, is that we're so focused on the comfort, safety, predictability, love, kindness, which of course are indispensable to any relationship, but we're eliminating all possibility for risk and exploration. So of course, everybody's tolerance for risk is different. My idea of risk might be different than your idea of risk, but most of us have some desire, whether it's 1%, 10%, 20%, to do things that feel uncomfortable. So that might be talking about a fantasy that you'd never actually want to live out, like a threesome. I always talk about the two-tongue technique where you lick up and down your partner and then you add your finger with some lube so it feels like there are two tongues. And then you weave the fantasy of, oh, don't you want to feel two tongues against you? Everybody's been talking about you. Of course I want to share you. And then at the end, you can say, don't even think about it. That's not what I'm into.
Close that door. Right.
And then some people want to open it, like, whatever you're into, I want to support you. So I always worry that as a sexologist, people think that I'm trying to tell them to have more sex, but I'm not. I just want you to have fulfilling sex, whether that's sex once a year, or sex once a day, or whether that's in the dark or in,
Don't you think
in a sex
people are
club.
so judgy? I feel like people are I talk about this with other therapists too, like sexologists, that people are so judgy because you made such a great point that, and this is true for me too. I always think like maybe I'm judgy too, I don't know. But when you talk about swinging or polyamory, whatever it is, people always think like, oh, they must be in like, something must be wrong with the relationship, when really underlying, they must be really solid and super in love to be able to do, right? Isn't what you just said was super important, I think.
Yeah. And I think the tendency to judge is normal because we're afraid that somebody has something that we don't have. And, I think a lot of relationships are not as fulfilling as they could be because we're not investing in them. And so sometimes when I, talk to people about all these different questions and prompts and conversations and exercises, they're like, oh, that seems like a lot of work. And I say to them, what's the most important thing in your life? And they're always going to say it's their partner and family, but they don't act that way because you put so much effort into your fitness, into your health, into your job, into your finances, but then you're not putting the same amount of effort into the thing that you say you care about most. When you're 99 years old, you're not going to worry about whether you lost 10 pounds or whether you got rid of a wrinkle or whether you had extra money in your bank account. You're probably going to be thinking about the people in your lives. So invest in these damn relationships from now, not when the problems arise, right? But now.
Yep. I wish I would.
My dream. Yeah.
my dream. Book. Yeah.
My dream is to have every single couple or whatever arrangement, go through a program like this, whether it's, I teach a lot of online courses, go through the mindful sex online course or go through this book before you move in together. Listen, it's never too late.
Right? Don't you wish
could we just,
yes. Yeah, I wish people would come to see me before they get married so that I can tell them what not to do. It's like, that's my whole thing, right? It's like, come to me first. Why are you waiting? Why do people wait to go to therapy before they get married when it's, and when they're already in the throes of the shit that's going on? Come to see me first so I can talk to you.
Yes. And take 10% of your wedding budget and divert it to the relationship. Like, I think it's really, people will tell me they're fighting during the wedding planning and their mother-in-law is driving them bananas and there's all this tension and they say, oh, I can't wait to get married. So it's all, go through the wedding so that this will dissipate. I'm like, no.
You're like, hello, no.
And more importantly, why, and then I tell them to see a therapist and they say, oh, it's so much time and so much money. I'm like, you've been to how many dress settings, fittings? You've spent how much on a damn cake or on bows for the back of your chair? Stop spending money and time and effort on your wedding and start investing in your relationship.
Well, my favorite is when people say, it's so expensive. It takes an hour to go, whatever. I'm giving money to someone. I'm like, you work out. whatever, an hour a day, and you spend X amount of dollars at a gym or a physical trainer or whatever, and you won't do something, you won't sit down with a therapist for your relationship, you won't go to couples therapy, that just drives me nuts.
Right. And it's, I think it's that we're afraid to confront our own stuff, right? We're afraid of being called out. We're afraid of failing. So the couples therapy rates in terms of positive outcomes are not particularly promising, but a lot of that has to do with the fact that people wait an average of 6 to 7 years after a serious problem arises before they go to therapy. We would never do that with our finances. We always regret it with our health, right? Like you can't, treat your body a certain way for 70 years and then hope to make a change in the 71st year and undo all that damage. Well, the same applies to your relationship. So wherever you are, whether you're in a good place, consider just even chatting with a therapist. Or I tell people all the time, because I facilitate these workshops and we go through some of the activities in the book, and we can't do them all together, but I tell them, take these prompts to your therapist, walk through them with your therapist, have a facilitated discussion. Of course, you can do it on your own. But if you feel that you need to set the time aside and commit to doing it, because if you're paying a therapist, you're going to show up, take these and let them help you through it as well. And you'll probably have a more rich discussion with someone listening, because you might be more mindful, less defensive, less likely to withdraw, less likely to be aggressive.
Okay, Jess, one question, and then I have to let you go because I can't keep you forever, even though I really would. Maybe put you on the spot. But what if one partner wants to do this work and the other partner doesn't? What do you suggest doing? Is that too much on the spot? I didn't really ask you.
No, I think that's a great question. And so we run into this all the time. So I say, go do the work yourself. I think sometimes we even use our partners as an excuse and say, oh, well, my partner won't come to therapy. That's fine. You can never change your partner's behavior. You can't change the way they think, but you can change the way you think and the way you behave, which will affect how you feel. So a therapist or even a self-help book, it doesn't mean that you have to see. I know not everyone has access to a therapist, although you can see more people online now, which is a great thing.
Stuff, yeah.
Yeah. So, I really say do the work yourself. A professional can help you to work through your own feelings, to adjust the way you react to some of their behavior that you might find off-putting or difficult, challenging, or triggering. And so if you use your partner as an excuse for not getting help, you are as much the impediment as they are. And I know that's really hard to hear, but please go do the work yourself.
We tell the truth here, Jess. We do. Okay. One more thing too. So even with your book, which everybody's going to go get the book today, right now, listeners, it's called The Ultimate Guide to, am I right? Ultimate Guide to I can't say it. Seduction and foreplay. Is that right?
That's right.
Okay. So everyone go get that right now, because I'm going to get it today. Is it on Amazon, Jess?
It sure is. Yeah. Amazon and your local booksellers.
Awesome. Everyone go get that today. And then I'm going to read it. And so I'm going to go to my boyfriend and I'm going to say, look, here's what we're doing. And if he says no, I'm going to keep doing it myself. Is that what I'm supposed to do?
I love that. I really love that, because the book isn't just for couples, right? Certainly, I think all of the reflections can be done on your own. And in fact, I would recommend you do them on your own first. Like I find it really useful just to kind of jot down what I'm thinking before I go have an intense conversation. Right. And these conversations can be intense. It doesn't mean that they have to be fraught with friction, but certainly, some feelings are going to come up that can be uncomfortable. And my suggestion is, when you feel uncomfortable, or when you feel like saying no, or when you feel like saying no way, no how, be open to setting your boundary. You can absolutely say, no, I'm not into that. But can we dig a little deeper and really talk about why? Why are you not into that? What scares you about it? What makes you uncomfortable? What do you think could go wrong? What are you afraid of losing? So I always give the example of, for example, fantasies. Let's say my partner has a fantasy about going to a sex club. Okay. And I really don't want to go to a sex club. I find them very off-putting. I just don't want to go. So I do like sex clubs, but
you're like, I'm there, but forget. Okay.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's so funny. As a professional, I end up going there to work or, teach a class. So then I don't get the same excitement. Right, you're like, I'm too nervous to go. Yeah. Yeah. So, but let's say I'm just really not into it. So I can say no way, no how, end of conversation. And that conversation killer is going to lead to an impasse and probably cultivate incompatibility in the relationship. Okay. If, on the other hand, I said, whoa, that's a lot for me to hear. I'm glad you told me. I'm definitely uncomfortable with that. But I'd like to explore it more. Maybe not right now, but then I can ask the questions of, like, why am I so against it?
Sure,
What scares me about it? Am I afraid that I won't fit in? Am I afraid that there will be pressure? Am I afraid that if we do that, he's going to want something else?
Yes,
Am I afraid that if we go there, we might get in a fight? Am I afraid of, being naked? What is it that I'm afraid of?
And because there's lots of stuff besides just the no. There's way past that, right? There's lots of questions.
Exactly.
Yes.
So if I can talk about the deeper no, and he can talk about the deeper yes, because I could say, okay, I really want to know what appeals to you about a sex club. And he might say something like, oh, it'll just be really hot. Okay, dude, you need to dig deeper than that.
That's not enough. That's not enough. Give me more.
Exactly. Yeah. And so then you have a really meaningful conversation. And even if you don't agree, you're going to understand one another better. You might have little pieces you can pick out of it. So for example, maybe he just wants to watch other people have sex. Okay. And then maybe we can decide to do that by watching feminist porn together. Or maybe
there's other things to do besides. I see. That works.
Or maybe we never do it, but I can talk to him about how I'm going to bring you to a sex club. And you just kind of delve into that fantasy, even though it's just talk. It's not action. And adults can differentiate between fantasy and reality. So these conversations are so important, especially if you dig a little bit deeper.
Now, Dr. Jess, what if he says or she says no and shuts you down completely? Like, for example, this is one I always use with people because I have a lot of girlfriends who are like, into their vibrators. They love their dildos, whatever. And the guy's like, absolutely not. I'm not touching. It's it either makes him jealous or it offends him, blah, blah, blah. And so they always say to me, like, he won't let me have that in the bed. And it's like an absolute no. What if it's an absolute no? Like, I feel like if it's an absolute no, that's kind of like, I don't know how I feel about that. I feel like nothing should be a no. It should be a talk about. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, no, and let's talk about it, right? Yes. So you definitely don't have to do anything you're uncomfortable with. And I wouldn't want anyone to feel pressured. But a no without the emotional exploration is shutting, it's really building a wall between the two of you.
I agree.
So if he could at least admit that he feels intimidated by it, then, but oftentimes they don't. They'll say something like, oh, that's gross, or something's wrong with you.
Yes,
and
that's
they go on the offensive.
That's what's happening. Yeah, so I don't like that. That's a little bit.
That's really awful. What an awful way to shame your partner.
I know.
And so I think you want to go to them and say, like, you know what, this feels really good for me. Being with you feels really good for me. This could never replace what we have.
Right, that's what I told them. Right.
I want to talk about this because I feel like the way you've said this makes me feel ashamed, and I can't really have sex with someone who's made me feel ashamed and really enjoy it. So let's explore this. I know it's uncomfortable. I know it feels bad for you, but I want to talk about it. It doesn't have to be now, but I think we should have this conversation. And then other pieces are, have you thought about using the vibrator on him? Have you thought about the ones that are designed specifically for couples? Like
that's fun.
All of those V-Vibe toys that, by the way, are all app enabled. So right now, you can let your partner control it if you're separated.
Oh my God, that's so smart. Because they have the apps where you can actually make it vibrate it when you're not in the room.
Exactly. Not even in the same country.
Oh my God. I never thought about that. That's right. Because Dr. Jess, you're so smart.
Well, it's not me. It's the toys.
That's exactly right. Oh my God. And that's another thing too. I have friends who their husbands or partners won't even go with them to Adam and Eve or one of those, and I just feel oh wow. There's a lot. I think there's a lot of, I don't know if it's they're scared or they're uncomfortable or it's difficult conversations. I just think that this book is going to I love it. I love this idea. I love everything about it. I think you're awesome. Dr. Jess, where can everybody find you?
You can find me. It's
going to be in the show notes, but go ahead.
Yeah, Sex with Dr. Jess on all social media and the Sex with Dr. Jess podcast. And we talk about everything from emotional literacy to communication to G-spots and techniques. So it's a really broad conversation.
I love it. I love it. And I've already followed you everywhere. I did that today and I was stalking you the other day and I just think you're awesome. And I'm just so glad you were here today and I appreciate everything you've done. And once again, you guys, the book is The Ultimate Guide to Seduction and Foreplay. I'm buying it today. It comes out today. Go get it, Amazon, your bookstores everywhere, and read it and do the prompts. And, you heard it today here. And I mean, I love talking about sex and this is my favorite topic. And Dr. Jess, I appreciate you. And thank you for being here and sharing today with me.
Thank you so much. Oh, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank Thank you. Thank you. Everybody, you know where to find me. As often, as usual, jenniferhurvitz.com or Jennifer Hurvitz Biz all over social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, yada, yada. Everybody, do your thing today. Do your part. Have a great day. Make it a good one. Stay inside, be safe, and be healthy. And as always, you guys, once again, peace, love, and so much truth. Bye. Thanks for listening to Doing Divorce Right. If you enjoy the podcast, please subscribe, recommend, rate, and review on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts. Want to keep the podcast going? Support us by going to www.jenniferhurvitz.com. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week. Peace, love, and truth.